Carolina Hurricanes on Tuesday night unfortunately saw their home winning streak snap to the Nashville Predators. But one couple silver linings is stay hot, Taylor Hall, and congratulations to Seth Jarvis on a milestone.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hawkeyes. Also do some AHL coverage over at the Calder Times. Even doing some baseball at Covering the Corner for SB Nation. I'm also a co-host on the Searchcast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a Wednesday edition of the pod for you guys as we kind of recap the Hurricanes' 3-1 loss to the Nashville Predators. Also going to talk about the great stretch of games that Taylor Hall's been on and Seth Jarvis hitting a milestone, and we will wrap up the show listening to Rod Brind'Amour's thoughts post-game from their, like I said, loss to Nashville. And going into the game, the team's on a five home game winning streak. They beat the Ducks to end the road trip in California. They took 6 out of a possible 8. You're looking for a revenge game against the Nashville Predators, a team who just doesn't really score a lot of goals. Don't really get, they give them a good amount as well. We talked about in the preview. And the thing with this game is you got a full 60 minutes from the Hurricanes. It wasn't like they just didn't show up. They didn't do their jobs. I mean, when you throw 35 shots on the net, you outshoot them in the first period 11-7, 16-2 in the second, and then 8-7 in the third. I mean, what more can you do when you just have UC Saros doing UC Saros type stuff where he's just every time he plays the Canes, for whatever reason, he decides to go into, Vezina mode and basically stop everything. I mean, you look at the guy who only gave up a power play goal, but he saved 34 of 35. And, we'll hear from Rod Brind'Amour, during the third segment of the show, but it's just they unfortunately got goalied by Saros, who's, doesn't have a great record, but just finds a way to turn it on when he needs to. And unfortunate with Brady Shea's first game back in Carolina in the regular season, hopefully Mark Jankowski was going to do something as well. It's just you score 1 goal, you lose 3-1, and 2 of them were probably preventable, but it didn't really work out that way. I mean, the Michael Bunting goal, Pierre Kachekov kind of overplayed the puck. He thought he had it, missed it, and puck was in the crease, and former Hurricane Michael Bunting, like, it's the free space on any hockey bingo card when you're going against a former team. You get a goal, and he did. And then the second one, just a unfortunate play to Evangelista, and he scores on a soft one. And then third goal, just it's an unfortunate one. I mean, this the first Evangelista goal was just it was a great play by him. Got to give him credit that his second goal could have prevented that one too. But and Rod said it during the game was the Hurricanes gifted Nashville 2 goals, and that's kind of what does you in. It's just the soft ones, the ones that really shouldn't have beaten you, and they did. And somehow those ones are always the backbreakers, the ones that somehow happens when you go up against a goalie who decides to, play Dominic Hasek type levels and stopping everything plus the kitchen sink you throw at him. You're in the unfortunate circumstance. But, I mean, overall, it stinks when you give up a power play goal with 6 seconds left in the opportunity. I mean, the power play, PK unit went 2 for 3 for the Hurricanes, but so did Nashville. At least the Hurricanes have gotten 3 power play goals, since March 15th against Philadelphia, and they're all from Taylor Hall, and he's on a heater right now. 4 goals in 2 games. He's scored the last 4 Hurricanes goals between the Ducks in Nashville. The last 4 goals are all by Taylor Hall. Like, who would have thought that out of all the guys that the Hurricanes brought in on, the 24th, and then with the trade deadline, with Mark Jankowski being, as good as he is, 6 goals in his last 8 games, how about just Taylor Hall, man? I mean, you're talking about a guy he's got 3 power play goals since the 15th, and then he scored the last 4 for the Hurricanes, and he's on an insane run, but it's like I said, I really can't. I mean, Pierre Kachekov, the other day is a couple. The first goal he definitely could have had a chance on this. The other 2, I mean, what can you really do? It's just unfortunate circumstances. But I mean, you really can't fault the Hurricanes overall with a game when you're playing 60 minutes, because that's all we're asking is, are you playing 60 minutes? Yeah, maybe the passing wasn't crisp the whole game, but overall, I mean, you're getting your opportunities, you're getting your chances. There's a few backdoor opportunities. Just Bear Cook games find Jack Roslovic, and the puck goes wide. There's pucks going off the post. I mean, the goal where Evangelista scores and makes it 2-0. Everyone thought Tyson just scored a goal, and he thought it too, and you thought it was 1-1. Unfortunately, it went off the post and didn't go in, and now next thing you know, you're down 2-0. You get one back in the second, and then just the third, unfortunately, just couldn't find to get the equalizer. Then you go down 2, and then it's just, you're pretty much throwing everything you can at Saros, and he's just making all the saves. So, like I said, you can't really blame the Hurricanes for a game like that where, you maybe let in a couple softies, but, you just have a goalie who's, still trying to figure out what's going on with him and the team, and he just happens to show up on the net when you're playing him, and he goalies you, and you got swept by Nashville, which, I mean, there's always that one team. Every team's got that one team where, like, how do you not beat these guys? And Nashville, for whatever reason, is the Carolina Hurricanes kryptonite of teams that are bottom 5 in the league. So it's just, like I said, you can't fault them. The PK, outside of, maybe 6 seconds left on their first penalty kill where they could have stopped bunting, they did well. The power play scored a goal, which you only can ask for. So you kind of finished even on the special teams battle. I mean, you doubled their shot total, essentially. And like I said, you played 60 minutes of hockey, which is all we really ask for. It's just, like I said, no game is ever easy in the NHL. There's no gimmies. There's no automatic 2 points. It's just anyone can beat everyone. And Nashville is one of those teams that, they've won enough games, and they've beaten Carolina twice, and you got goalied. That's all I can really say. And, just unfortunate circumstances happen. That's all you can really do is just, learn from the game that, hey, you did all you could, just couldn't get the job done. See a home game winning streak snapped at 5. But hey, you know what? It's, you have 3 more games in the homestands. You got Montreal coming on Friday, and you just regroup and get ready for that game on Friday and get back into the win column. And instead of being 28-7-1 at home, now you're 27-8-1, 43-24-4 on the season. I mean, with how New Jersey's struggling recently, the Hurricanes are still in a good opportunity to take the second Metro spot. Now it's just, it's maybe a little bit harder for now for them to take the second seed in the East. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how all that plays out. But I mean, just one of those games. It's weird. It happens. You get goalie at the wrong time. You try everything you can. It's just unfortunate. But hey, when you got, guys like Taylor Hall stepping up over the last few games, especially since, the Philadelphia one back on March 15th, and now even on the California trip, Seth Jarvis hitting some milestones. That's always great to see as well. And, like I said, I feel bad for Piotr. There's maybe 1 or 2 goals he would love to have back, but overall, he wasn't a horrible night for him. Definitely a bounce back from, at least a little bit from the Kings game. But I don't know. It's just one of those things. But like I said, there's some silver linings. At least Taylor Hall staying hot, proving why the Hurricanes should definitely keep him. And Seth Jarvis hits a huge milestone, so congratulations to him. And we will actually talk about both these guys a little bit more, so stick around as we'll talk about Taylor Hall and Seth Jarvis in segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posting on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. Now you can speed up your hiring process with $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, well, Indeed is all you need. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Like I said, the end of segment 1, Taylor Hall has been on an absolute tear now for the Carolina Hurricanes. Like I said, scoring his third power play goal since the Flyers game on March 12th, and he's scored the last 4 Carolina Hurricanes goals dating back to the natural hat trick on Sunday against the Anaheim Ducks. I mean, to go from 12 to 16 goals that fast, it shows that, hey, he was a former MVP for a reason. And it's another reason why, if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, why you need to go and lock up Taylor Hall. I mean, you're looking at a guy who's very well could fit in your top 9. I mean, obviously right now he's been playing top 6 for the last few games and being on line with Jesperi Kotkaniemi and Jack Roslovic. I mean, depending on what they do with Roslovic or even Hall, I mean, you have to bring, this offseason, I mean, you have to bring Hall back at least. Out of the two, you at least have to bring Hall back just because of the fact that he's, a top 6 guy that you would love to have it. He's a veteran presence. He's even said he wants to stay in Carolina. He doesn't want to go anywhere else. He doesn't want to go to another team. He doesn't want to get traded. He doesn't want to sign somewhere and then have to be a trade bid. Like, he just wants to sign a contract, finish out his career with that team, and be done with it. I mean, if you're looking at him, like I said, a 3x3 to maybe a 3x4.5, that would be a fantastic contract for him. So that's why I think this is where you look at Taylor Hall and be like, okay, you took a flyer on this guy, you brokered a draft pick to have Chicago take half of Mikko Rantanen's contract, and you get Taylor Hall in the process. And in the end, Taylor Hall is the guy that kind of stays out of that trade. And he's, over the last few games, it's taken him like 10 to 15 games, to get settled in. And he even said that's usually what takes the time for him to get acclimated. Of course, with him having his wife, and then there's having a newborn, he's having to learn a lot, moving to Raleigh, dealing with all of that. And, it usually takes about 10 to 15, maybe 20 games for guys to lock in and get used to a system. And you're definitely seeing that with Taylor Hall because he's been scoring at a ridiculous clip as of late, creating a lot of opportunities too, 200-foot game, north, south, east, west, that's a guy that Rod Brind'Amour will love to have. And the fact that you have a first overall pick, back from 2010, you got a former MVP when he was with the New Jersey Devils. He really resurged his career with the Boston Bruins before going to Chicago. And you are looking at Taylor Hall, not having to worry about being a mentor or, having to be, that guy on a struggling team like the Blackhawks. Now he just fits in on a really good Carolina Hurricanes team that obviously we all know is going to go to the playoffs. Now it's just how much of a deep run are they going to make? And now he doesn't have to be the guy. He doesn't have to do everything. It's just, hey, go out there, do your job, fit in well with the system. That's all you can really ask for. So I think that's where you're looking at a, Taylor Hall being the perfect example of a guy you want to keep in Carolina. Because like I already said, he wants to be here. And you're seeing the effects of being in a great locker room, being in a great situation where, the team is really tight. You got really great coaches, Rod Brind'Amour and Tim Gleason, Jeff Daniels, Paul Schoenfelder, and, you got Eric Tulsky as your GM and stuff like that. It's just, it puts you into a good spot of, you want to be here. He's bought in. He wants to be in Carolina. And for the fact that you're seeing the production out of him right now, you love to see it. And that just goes to show that another example of why Taylor Hall needs to stay in Carolina. Because, when you talk about a run like this, you can't be anything but happy for the guy because of just how great he's been playing as of late. So congrats to Taylor Hall for staying absolutely red hot. Now, another guy who had a great night is Seth Jarvis. He, on the primary assist to the only goal of the game, which was from Taylor Hall in the power play, it got him his 200th NHL point. And for the fact that he's already in season 4 of his NHL career, he's already up at 200 points, it goes to show that even with last year where he finished, in the 60s, and he's on his way to having possibly another 60-point season, another 30 goals as well. Like, it's crazy to think that you're looking at that guy that you drafted back in 2020, 13th overall in the, with the pick that you got from Toronto for taking, Patrick Marleau's, contract or whatever, just taking half of that and just, buying him out and all of that stuff. And you go out and you draft Jarvis, and now you're looking at, it's the 24-25 season, like I said, on another run to a 30-goal, 60-point season, and he's already up to 200 already. And I said it before the season begins, and I've even read articles about it over the Hockey Writers, like, don't be shocked if he gets top 30 all-time in points. Like, I don't know if he's going to hit it this year with, I think they're talking with 11 games left, maybe 12. It's still a good opportunity for him to get it done. So, I mean, he has a chance to get up to where he's top 30 in, Hurricanes history, which is still crazy to think about for the fact that he's 23, he's in his 4th season, and he's already about ready to hit top 30 all time in points for the Carolina Hurricanes / Hartford Whalers. That goes to show how great of a player he is, and just how the fact that he hasn't even hit his prime yet, and he's already this good. And definitely deserving of 200 AHL points. And like I said, you go from 40 his rookie year, 39 his sophomore year, mid-60s, on his way to another 60 again. It gives us the testament of just how Seth Jarvis is, playing in Winnipeg, then, going to the Portland Winterhawks of the WHL, comes to Carolina, forces went out of the roster, and then, his sophomore year, people look at them as like, oh, it's a slump. Is he going to be good? And it's just he spent that whole season learning his defense. He became a two-way 200-foot player that Rod Brind'Amour wants, and now you saw it last year. And even look at it this season. Rod Brind'Amour uses Seth Jarvis in all situations: PK, power play, face-offs, all 3 zones. He's put him with the Jordans for a good majority of the season too. And if there's a line that needs a spark plug, his go-to is Seth Jarvis, and that just speaks to the level of competitiveness that he has in him, and how much he's grown as a hockey player, going from a guy who's mainly known for scoring and having some offense to now being the Swiss Army knife jack of all trades, the guy you throw into any type of situation, and being a player that Rod Brind'Amour wants. So for him to notch his 200th NHL point is more than deserving for a guy who's worked really hard in just not even 4 full seasons in the NHL. And you have to be excited for him, because you're talking about year 1 of an 8-year contract. Like, what are we looking at in 7 more seasons when he's like 30 by the time his contract's up? Or I think it's like 29. It's gonna be like 29 when this deal is up, almost 30, and then you have an opportunity to extend him even longer than that. So like, you're looking at a possibility of Seth Jarvis just being a Carolina Hurricane for life. And we all know Sebastian Aho is on his way to set a lot of records in, offensively for the Hurricanes, but who's to see that maybe Seth Jarvis is not that far behind him and might have something to say about those records too. I mean, Sebastian Aho is really far ahead on a lot of categories, but if you're looking at a guy like Seth Jarvis and what he's doing right now at 23, who's to say that he might not have, a few more great seasons in him as well, where he could potentially talk about top 15, top 10 in points, goals, assists, special teams, all that type of stuff. So, like I said, you just got to give it to Seth Jarvis, 200, AHL points. What a great night to do it. Unfortunately, you'd wish the team won. But, like I said, silver linings, got to give stick taps and credit where it's due. Seth Jarvis did that. He got the point. He got his 200th. Now it's just keeping all eyes on the 300th, and hopefully see how the rest of the season goes. Hopefully he gets 30 goals and 60 points again. And, hopefully, he hits 30th all-time in AHL points for the franchise of the Hurricanes and Oilers. So it'll definitely be a fun race towards the finish to see if he hits that mark. Now, speaking of all that, we talked about the game. We talked about Hall and Jarvis, but what did Rod Brind'Amour think of this game? You can tell in this, middle of the game, thing with Hannah Yates, he's like, yeah, give him a couple freebies, and, that's where they're at right now. And They fought hard all game. But what else did the head coach say after their loss to Nashville? So stick around as we'll do that here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. If you're like me, your mornings have to start with a good cup of coffee. But I got tired of selling for grocery store brands that just weren't cutting it. That's what I turned to Trade. And let me tell you, this coffee is next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the U.S., bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, creating over 450 amazing roasts. Whether you're new to coffee or know exactly what you like, they'll handpick the perfect match for you. I know for me, I had the, Atomic, coffee that was really good too. The Space Cadet, fantastic coffee, really good. I highly recommend that one. So right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off your first order at drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/LockedOnNHL for $40 off your first order. That's drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Like I said at the end of segment 2, Rod Brind'Amour did meet with the media after the Hurricanes 3-1 loss to the Nashville Predators, getting his thoughts on the game overall and just what he saw from the aspect of the team playing 60 minutes of hockey and everything that happened in it. So without further ado, let's jump into that with Rod Brind'Amour right now.
Rod, you often talk about getting chances and things like that, and that's the important thing. You want to get points, you get chances, but even, you can see frustration boiling a little bit. Sebastian mentioned we're getting a ton of chances. It's our job to score. Is that kind of...
No, I mean, tip your hat to the goalie. I mean, let's give him some credit. I mean, that guy won him a game tonight. End of story.
The power play's been clicking a lot more recently, especially Taylor Hall's been finding ways to convert for you guys. Do you think anything's different there with the looks they're getting?
No, I think just now that they've had some time together. We went through 2 months of just new guys coming and going and some injuries, and all of a sudden you're just getting no cohesiveness. So maybe a little more time together, that'll start hopefully moving in the right direction, which I think it has.
It seemed like KK, Roslovic, and Taylor had pretty good chemistry going, but in the end of the game, you were working Jankowski into there too. Was that just you shortening your bench but keeping him available, or was there something more to that?
Well, I actually thought Janks was real effective in the 5 minutes he had, and I needed to get him some more. That's what I was doing there.
Is Kachekov's performance, that first goal is a little...
Yeah, he's got to have that. He knows it. I mean, everybody... You don't have to be a hockey person to understand that you got to have that. It's going 2 feet wide, and then you got to cover it. He knows. He's been good for us all year, and tonight was a tough one.
And that's the difference, I guess, is now you're chasing the game instead of you're playing in front.
Chase the game, and then they make a nice play on a breakaway that we make a bad change. But when you're down 1, and then they're going to make a play at some point there, and they do. Now you're down 2. Whereas if we're even, now we're just down 1. The game feels a little different, so. You tip your hat. I think they capitalized when they needed to, and Saros was elite tonight.
You mentioned a couple times getting Jankowski some more time. How difficult is that when maybe some of the other lines are generating opportunities?
Yeah, it's just it's part of it. You got to figure it out, get the flow. And we had the second period was tough because we had the power plays kind of stacked on top of each other, and that's. Like I said, I liked our game tonight. I can't complain. A couple of things we'd like to do differently, but overall, I think we gave up 15 shots. That's a good number.
You notice any frustration with Jackson Blake? I mean, he's generating chances and chances, but it's been a while since he's been able to pop.
Yeah, he's been he might have been the best player on the ice tonight. Like, he was around it every shift. And he set up Jarvis right to start the second period or third period, I think it was, just from a second effort type of thing, and we just didn't capitalize at the end of the day. We scored on a couple of those. The game looks a lot different.
Do you handle how you handle him differently than you handle maybe Sebastian or a veteran player who's not seeing the puck go in? I mean, you have to be careful with that and make sure he doesn't get discouraged.
Yeah, I mean, I think you treat everyone the same and differently. You have to know. I mean, he's playing well. Like, everybody gets caught up in the points and all that, but just watch the game. Who's playing good every night? It's pretty easy to see.
Big thank you to Rod Brind'Amour of the Carolina Hurricanes, as always, for that. And you heard it from him. It's just, you got to give credit to UC Saros. He just won them a game, and he even mentioned, when they asked him about Pierre Kachekov and the goal that he gave him, he goes, hey, he knows it too. Everyone knows it. It's just, hey, you have to, forget about it and play on. And he, for the most part, did that. And it's one of those games where nothing can really go their way. They threw everything at Saros. He just stopped everything. And, you're just going to have one of those games. And, being asked, what are you treating one different, depending if it's a veteran or a new guy, and Rod's like, yeah, you got to treat everyone the same, and you also got to treat them differently too, depending on how they're playing and stuff like that, and watching the game. So, and I think that's a good thing for when you have a coach like Rod who's been there and done that as a player. And it's like, okay, well, if a guy's having a bad game, I'm just going to bench him. It's like, well, no, you're going to have to limit his ice time a little bit if there's other guys that are playing a little bit better. But you're not going to just shorten your bench that quick and, put the guys into the doghouse to put them in a bad spot. It's just, you're having to read each guy and seeing how they're playing and how you go about each game and, what adjustments you need to make. And I think that's what sets, the Hurricanes into a part where it doesn't really matter who you are. Everyone has to pull on the same rope and do the same job. And that's why when you look at guys who are bought in, if you're bought in, you're going to stay in Carolina. If you're not bought in, then you're most likely not going to be there. You saw with different guys for different reasons. So it's just finding a way to have a balance with the Canes on the roster. Like, hey, if certain guys are playing a lot better, they're going to try to get more ice time. If you're not playing so great, maybe you see your ice time drop a little bit, but it's not like you're just going to be completely just, playing on the bench all game and you're just done. It's just, they have to read on what's appropriate for the team and what they need to do to help them win that game. And it's just on a night where you have, you're doubling the shots than the other team. What more can you really do when the other guy on the other side just does his job? Because, the team on the other side gets paid the same just to play hockey like the Hurricanes do. It's just, is the puck luck there? Are the opportunities there? Is the goaltender playing out of his mind? Is the other team, scoring at will like the Kings did on Saturday? It's just a lot of things go into it. It's just, unfortunately, the Hurricanes were on the wrong side of a game that just didn't really go their way, but yeah, that happens, but what more can you do there? And I know the game on Tuesday night, it's their last one against the Western Conference team for the rest of the regular season. Now they get to focus on all Eastern Conference teams trying to, build divisional points, try to get to that second seed in the East and see how they do in the playoffs. And hopefully, knock on wood, the next time they see a Western Conference team, it will be in the Stanley Cup final. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how that goes. But we'll see. It's a game that's it's unfortunate, but at least you got 60 minutes of Hurricanes hockey. That's, like I said, that's all we really ask for. It's just on the wrong end of a night where you got goalied by UC Saros, who's not having a great season this year, but overall, we look at the span of his career. He's a pretty decent goalie that, has put up Vezina-like numbers. It's just this year is not his year, but hey, what can you do? Sometimes goalies just get hot at the right time, and unfortunately, if you're not the team with the hot goalie, you caught the wrong end of it, and that's just what the Hurricanes did. But they still have 3 more games in this homestand. They got Montreal on Friday. Gear up, get ready. I know they're not practicing on Wednesday. They are going to have a morning skate on Thursday at Invisalign Arena. So if you are in the area, make sure to go check them out to catch a Canes practice. But guys, that will wrap up a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen today. For your second listen, well, why don't you go check out Locked On NHL Podcast, bringing you the daily league wide stories that matter with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneShoeZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin, where I do have link trees in all my bios where you can find my articles at thehockeywriters.com for all things Carolina Hurricanes. If you want to look at my AHL stuff, well, it's theCalderTimes.com. By chance, maybe you want to check out my baseball coverage. It's at coveringthecorner.com at SB Nation talking about the Cleveland Guardians. I'm also on the Search Cast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast. Make sure to check that out on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For this show, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio. Follow, like, leave a 5-star rating review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, Locked On Hurricanes, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share it with all their Canucks to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hope everyone enjoyed their Wednesday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.